welcome back to the Northern Broadcasting Service of the North Pacific. And today we're still delighted to have Magecastle Embassy A5, also known as the Ice States, joining us. And continuing from the previous episode, we were talking about the work of the General Assembly Secretariat. And I think one of the things that was mentioned in the previous episode is the workload of the General Assembly Secretariat. And I'm just looking at the GA rulings catalog now, and in 2024, there have been 6 resolutions so far. And I think you participated in 5 of them because there was one that was first raised way back in 2023. That's the one on prohibition on fees for owning TV sets. And I also noticed that.
No, it was 4 that I participated in, since I recused from ban on World Assembly conscription.
Oh yeah. That one, for 2024 GAS2, you was before your time, and 2024 GAS6, you recused. And I also noticed that of the 6 rulings coming out of GenSec, 5 of them somehow involved a proposal from me or a proposal challenged by me. So I guess I'm the one that is currently creating all of the workload for GenSec. So tell us a bit about, to the extent that you can disclose, how is it working, in GenSec, with the obviously the caveat that I know that you can't disclose any confidential details.
Right now, most of the activity, I think, has been focused on the rule changes, which we discussed in the last week. And yes, also ruling on the challenges when they come. I think lately IA has been writing most of the opinions. Looking at the catalogue, there's also been a few per curiams. I have written a few draft opinions, but they haven't advanced to publication. There's one on the Chocolate Day Challenge, which we still haven't actually finalized a decision on. The only one I have written that's been published was a concurrence on press freedoms. I think I wrote that since I didn't agree with one of the paragraphs in IA's opinion, which was the majority. And there were also some other issues, particularly about how we read repeals, that I wanted to address. Obviously, it wasn't going to make it to the majority opinion, but I still thought it was worth having in the public record those arguments. It was actually, so the idea there was that we read repeals plainly. So, for example, we read denies as meaning that the target actively removes the right, as opposed to just permitting it. So that argument was actually based on further citation. It was based on something Wallenberg said in 2023, so there he argued that repeals should be read plainly, applying a colorable interpretation of the target. And I thought that was worth codifying in some form. As the majority, they also focuses more so on how we understand actions. So, for example, the distinction between omission and negative action cannot be erased, which is the main point on which it argues about. How do we understand action? Is there a difference between just not giving some right and actively denying it? The argument there is that the proposal is illegal because it claims that the target actively denies a right when it is merely withheld.
Yeah, so tell us about your time in RP and Greater Dienstad. I think I got the pronunciation right. No, like, what do you do there, and how's the RP like over there? I mean, I don't RP myself, so it's actually interesting. It's actually a very interesting question for me for that reason.
Generally, I use the actual NS forums, not some off-site venue. So the ones I'm most active in is the nation states and international incidents boards. So I haven't actually been as active as I would like to in writing posts. There's one with the Maccabees I'm working on, but that's going very slowly here. I'm aiming for like 4,000 words, and it's so far at 2,000, and there's still quite a bit I want to cover in that. In general, a lot of this is on IIWiki. I used to have it in Factbooks, but moved to an off-site venue because of the Craven incident last year. The Ice States in character has had 3 main periods which I've roleplayed. There's been others in the past, but those are historical. I didn't actively world build those as they happened. So the first is the Empire, which was a slaver. Well, it was originally a slaver and very capitalist regime. It was built around, it was a theocracy, and the religion and all that, it's just said you can find it on the wiki. So because a lot of the other nations in the region, so Holy Marsh would be the main one, were very strongly anti-slave, it ended up being abolished. It also, another factor behind that was that the Golden Throne, so that's the Maccabees in character, the in character nation, entered into an alliance with the Ice States, and one of the conditions for further advancement was that slavery was abolished. If I'm remembering right, this was 2 years ago by now. After that, though, so because of the slavery, there was a war entered with another nation called Zasludian Peoples, I think. Yes, it's Zasludian Peoples, the Federal Republic of Zasludian Peoples. It entered into a war because the FRCP blockaded a part of the Ice States. Eventually, after slavery was abolished, Holy Marsh forced them, also asked them to leave, but since they have de facto jurisdiction over the whole sea area, so they pretty much forced it. But the end result was that the Ice States started persecuting Zasludians, as in the ethnic group, within its jurisdiction. It was done very secretly, but eventually the news still came out. And because of that, there would have been revolution in the area, and the result was a communist regime. But the new regime was the Communal Union. It was formed with the backing of most major powers, and it didn't help that the Ice States during that war, during the rebellion, started also fighting the Golden Throne because it occupied a section of its territory. It wasn't planning to do a full invasion, but nonetheless, the Ice States saw it as an enemy and acted against it, which costed a lot of support. However, after that, the Communal Union also ended up going into war with the Golden Throne because the occupied territory. So the Golden Throne is very anti-communist. There was some conditions were made for withdrawal, which included that we had to trade a lot with them. But during the withdrawal, which was negotiated, they removed a lot of artifacts, which caused the Ice States to go to war with the nation. That is the roleplay around that is still ongoing, so it's not actually certain how that will end in character, except that at some point another neighboring nation, Devonia, invades, and the end result is that the communists are toppled, except for a small section of territory in the west. So actually, that territory in the west is under protection of Mogastana, is the nation name, and it's called Communist Hold, which it's again on the wiki, although I haven't built that wholly. But as to what actually happened to the Ice States, because by now it's lost a lot of its reputation with constantly fighting everyone, it ends up joining a union with Devonia in the form of the Eternal Union, and the main thing about it is that it's now allows a lot of scrutiny from the region. So, for example, Holy Marsh, the Golden Throne, and Mogastana each have a representative on the government, and the representatives have access to all government activity. Nothing is confidential to them. The point of that is so that other nations have a reason to actually trust it. A lot of the Eternal Union part hasn't been fully developed. Right now, I'm mostly working on developing the Communal Union. The reason for that is that historically so for example, one in-character year was one out-of-character month, which meant that so for example, 1 year after some event out of character, that was 10 years in character and more had to happen. But I'm not sure if I actually managed to keep up with that. So now it's part of that. So now the Eternal Union is only partly developed. So for example, the World Assembly mission and everything, while the Communal Union is mostly what I'm focusing on. The war with the Golden Throne, I mentioned it's on the forums. It's called the Battle of Glass Tears, and so far the status of that is that the invasion begun already, but not much has. But otherwise, it's still ongoing. So now the communist regime is obviously fighting back and all that. The post I'm currently working on, which is still taking so long, is one of the defense efforts by the communist regime against the Golden Throne.
Yeah. You mentioned the earlier about the specific religion, right? That was part of your RP, right?
Yes.
So the specific religion in the GA, and I think there was some argument that it should be in the SC instead.
So you asked if the North Pacific and the General Assembly were part of my law?
Yeah, did I get the pronunciation right? The Klyper worship.
CNP, yes. Yes. That was a very important part of my original law. The Eternal Union is still theocratic in part, so actually I think it's only theocratic in the Ice States and Devonia. I don't know I haven't actually thought of what Devonia's religion is. The reason is that it was originally another player who disappeared about 5 years ago. They happened to have land next to where I was, so it ended up being used as a non-played country. The Eternal Union the Empire did a lot to persecute other religions. So, for example, attending a sacrifice each year was mandatory, and not believing in the religion was illegal. Now it doesn't go that far to persecute other religions, mainly because of the said pressure from other nations. Particularly Holy Marsh is the main one, because they're a neighboring nation and they're also a theocracy. It would be a problem if we actually persecuted them again. The Eternal Union, well, the ice part of it is still theocratic, but it no longer actively persecutes other religions.
Right, I see, I see. Just one final question, because we're coming up on the end of the second part by now. And what is your opinion towards, the GA versus the SC in terms of the RP? Should that be really SC territory because of the what has been decided on the GA GenSec side? I mean, or you would like to revisit that?
And actually, all aspects of the World Assembly do exist in character. So, for example, that the Ice States has written resolutions in the Security Council and such, it exists fully. So logically, that would, I guess, mean that raiding and defending is a thing. I believe I've said that the way that's represented is that regions so for example, areas where there's nations are literally taken over. But yes, I'm not sure if, I haven't actually gone through and tried to make the SC law coherent. I just assume it somehow exists. Obviously, with the General Assembly, there's the ambassador and everything. Only both the Empire and Eternal Union, they weren't actually members of the World Assembly. The Empire wanted to become a member, and as such, it sent its ambassador to repeal some resolutions which would have prevented that. The main one was freedom of religion. The ambassador, of course, went rogue and decided to submit the replacement over the objection of the main regime, which was one of the factors that led to the civil war, which put the communists in power. The Communal Union was actually a World Assembly member, and it complied with everything. It didn't fully comply. Towards the end, it broke a few resolutions about secret treaties and one about funding. The resolutions it broke was ban on secret treaties and responsibility in transferring arms. I'm working on, as in it's going very slowly, but I guess working on a roleplay, which is also the communist regime being tried for those violations. It's kept secret. Both of those violations are kept secret until by the time the communists are only governing the communist old witch, and most of the Ice States is under the Eternal Union. Both the Empire and Eternal Union they both use satellite nation as Bearsarmed Unibot, some of Wallenberg, I think, as they did, in that the nation, they operate some smaller nation housing its mission to the World Assembly, which is a member. That avoids the main nation having to comply. The Eternal Union right now, it's not really interested in joining as a member, but nonetheless it has a mission which does promote its agenda and everything in the assembly. I think out of character, I've had the Ice States in the World Assembly for a while. The Magecastle nation was originally meant to represent the Empire's satellite state. Magecastle is the name of a city in the Ice States which housed that mission. Now I don't use that as a World Assembly nation anymore. Now I just use the Ice States normal. However, in character, it's still not a member.
I think that's the nation that's used for your TMP, right?
Yes, Magecastle is the one I have in TMP.
Right. We have to bring this to a close now. Yeah. Oh, actually, before I forget, what about Starman of Stardust? I think that was another role.
So in character, that's the Democratic Stellar Union. It was a project I created in 2022. It's basically a futuristic, very pacifist nation. So it controls several, I think, I'm not sure if it was solar systems or planets. But yes, and it has a very strong policy of pacifism and has for a while promoted that in the World Assembly. I think by now I've blurred the line between that and the Ice States quite a bit. The reason is that the in-character reason, I guess, the out-of-character one being that I just forget to use or can't be bothered to use the DSU, is that the Ice States is now trying to look less authoritarian and theocratic than before, and so it's promoting civil rights legislation, which otherwise it wouldn't. I think there was one proposal, the Convention Against Military Aggression, which was originally written by the DSU in character, and the Ice States then took up. I think I might actually change that at some point, so it's always being pursued by the DSU. Because, yes, and that it is a bit strange in character. I guess maybe the DSU isn't very active, so it lets the Ice States pursue it or something.
Okay, right. I think our time is almost up for this episode. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Ice States for joining us here on TNP MBS, and on behalf of Simone and the rest of the team, thank you so much for your time. And please don't forget to tune into TNP MBS on the next episode.